To the Coding Corner Medical Coding Education. My name is Rebecca Proles, and I want to talk about gastroenterology coding, a practical guide, CPT, ICD-10, and documentation essentials. I want to break down the most important concepts in GI coding, focusing on CPT, ICD-10 documentation requirements, and common pitfalls. Also, we'll walk through some real-world examples to make the material stick. What makes GI coding unique? GI coding is one of the most detail-oriented specialties. Many procedures overlap, and documentation must be precise to support the correct code. Understanding the hierarchy of endoscopy codes is essential. These ranges from the backbone of GI coding. Each category has a base code and multiple add-on or more complex codes, depending on interventions performed. You have the EGD, the range 43235 through 43259. You can find this set of codes and a picture of what an EGD looks like on CPT Codebook, page 348. Colonoscopies, the range 45378 through 45398. You can also see the picture on page 373 of your CPT Codebook for a colonoscopy. ERCP, code range 43260 through 43278, can be found on page 352. EUS, or endoscopic ultrasound, is the code range 43231 through 43259. Anoscopy or sigmoidoscopy, 46600 through 45347. Understanding endoscopy coding hierarchy. Code to the furthest extent reached. Diagnostic endoscopy is included in therapeutic procedures, and biopsy is included when a more extensive procedure is performed. For example, if a colonoscopy includes polypectomy, you don't code the diagnostic colonoscopy separately. The therapeutic code, or the polypectomy, replaces it because the diagnostic procedure is included. Different techniques on different lesions allow for modifier 59. If the same lesion is treated with multiple techniques, code only the most extensive. Some examples: polypectomy, the scenario, colonoscopy with snare removal of a polyp. The correct code would be CPT 45385. Example 2, the biopsy. Colonoscopy with code forceps biopsy. The correct CPT code would be 45380. Now, with multiple techniques, we have the snare polypectomy and the biopsy in different lesions. The correct CPT codes would be 45385 and 45380 with the modifier 59. Again, because there were different lesions being treated. Biopsy and dilation codes replace the diagnostic EGD. Always check documentation for the highest level of service performed. Here, our examples are a diagnostic EGD, CPT code 43235, an EGD with a biopsy, CPT 43239, and an EGD with dilation, 43249. Again, the diagnostic EGD is bundled into the surgical EGD. Diagnosis coding must support medical necessity. For example, screening colonoscopies use Z12.11, but findings may require a switch to diagnostic coding. Medicare uses G codes for screening colonoscopies. Commercial payers typically use CPT codes. Here are the screening codes. The Z12.11 screening for colon cancer, then the G0121 for a screening for colonoscopy Medicare patient, a G0105 for high-risk screening colonoscopy for Medicare. If a polyp is found and removed, it would be a diagnostic CPT code. Screening intent remains for the ICD-10 with the Z12.11 listed first. Even if it's a screening and a polyp was removed, your first initial diagnosis would be the Z12.11. Modifiers are critical in GI coding. For example, modifier PT tells Medicare that a screening colonoscopy turned diagnostic, which affects patient cost sharing. Coders should always verify that the physician documented the furthest extent reached. This determines the correct CPT code selection. The documentation must include indication for the procedure, the extent reached, example cecum or terminal ileum, the techniques used, the number and location of the lesions, the pathology specimens taken, and any complications, if applicable. Incomplete colonoscopies have specific rules. If the scope doesn't reach the cecum, use modifier 53 or the appropriate reduced service code. Avoid these common coding errors. Coding diagnostic plus therapeutic together, missing modifier 59 for separate lesions, using screening codes when symptoms are present, incorrectly coding incomplete colonoscopies, and not capturing the furthest extent. GI coding rewards attention to detail. A structured workflow helps prevent errors. Some tips for accurate coding, best practices: always read the full operative report. Confirm pathology results when needed. Watch for payer-specific rules. Use coding hierarchy to avoid unbundling errors. Keep a quick reference table for common CPT code ranges. Some case examples. We have a patient undergoes a colonoscopy. 2 polyps were removed, one via snare, one via cold biopsy. We have here different techniques on different lesions. So the correct coding would be 45385 for the snare polypectomy and 45382 with the modifier 59 for the biopsy polypectomy, with the ICD-10 code of K63.5 for colon polyps. An EGD performed for GERD symptoms. Biopsies taken from esophagus. The correct coding would be 43239 for the EGD with the biopsy, and the ICD-10 code would be K21.9 for the GERD. Even if the physician also inspected the stomach and duodenum, the biopsy code replaces the diagnostic EGD code. Code to the highest level of specificity. Remember to understand the endoscopy hierarchy. Use your modifiers correctly, and documentation drives everything. GI coding can be complex, but with a solid understanding of the rules and consistent practice, accuracy becomes second nature. Thank you for watching today. Visit us at www.thecodingcornermce.com.